You did everything right. You saved when it was hard, you went without more times than anyone knew, and you built a cushion most people only ever wish they had. And now, when you are finally allowed to enjoy a little of it, you find that you can't. The balance goes up, and the fear does not go down. If that is you, I want you to hear something tonight. There is nothing wrong with you. That fear is not greed, and it is not a mistake in your math. It is a feeling with a reason, and once you can see where it came from, it begins, very gently, to loosen its grip. Let me say the thing out loud, the thing you might not have said to anyone. You have enough. By any honest measure, you have enough. And you still can't bring yourself to spend it. The nice dinner feels like too much. The trip gets planned and then quietly canceled. The coat you liked goes back on the rack. You are not broke, and you are not foolish. You are careful, the way you have always been careful, except now the carefulness has outlived the danger it was built for. That is what we are going to sit with tonight, not a lecture about how you should loosen up. Just an honest look at why the fear stayed long after the reason for it left. So let's start where it started, which is a long time ago. Almost nobody decides to become a saver as an adult. You learned it young. Maybe you watched a parent count out bills at the kitchen table and go quiet. Maybe you grew up in a house where money was a thing you did not talk about because talking about it meant admitting there was not enough. Maybe your mother or your father came up through years so lean that they never really trusted a full cupboard again, and without a word, they handed that watchfulness to you. You did not choose it. You absorbed it, the way a child absorbs everything, before you were old enough to know it was even a choice. And here is the important part. Back then, it worked. That watchfulness was not a flaw. It kept the lights on. It got you through the month. It built, dollar by careful dollar, the very security you are sitting on right now. The habit was not your enemy. It was the most loyal friend you had, which is exactly why it is so hard to set down. Psychologists who study our beliefs about money have a name for this. They call it a money script, a quiet story about money that we pick up in childhood and carry, mostly without noticing, for the rest of our lives. And one of those scripts, the one we are talking about tonight, is called money vigilance. It is the deep belief that money must be watched, guarded, kept safe, and that spending it is a little bit dangerous. And I want to be fair to it because this script is not all bad. The people who carry it tend to be the savers, the ones who live below their means, the ones who end up with something in the bank. In a lot of ways, it protects you. But the same watchfulness that builds the wall can also keep you pacing behind it long after the storm has passed. Because here is what the fear is really about, and it was never really about the money. Think about what the saving gave you underneath the numbers. It gave you the feeling of being okay, the feeling of not being caught out, the quiet pride of being the person who is ready, who would never be the one who ran short, who would never have to ask anyone for anything. That feeling is worth more than any figure on a statement. And spending, real spending, the kind where the money leaves and does not come back, feels like handing a piece of that feeling away. It is not the dollars you are protecting. It is the sense of being safe. It is a piece of who you are. That is why you cannot just tell yourself the numbers are fine and expect the fear to pack up and leave. The numbers were never the point. You are not arguing with a calculator. You are arguing with a frightened younger version of yourself, the one who learned a long time ago that letting your guard down was how you got hurt. And that person does not read spreadsheets. That person just wants to know that this time we are going to be all right. And I think that is why the usual advice never seems to land. People tell you you have plenty, Go enjoy it, and it slides right off, doesn't it? Because they are answering a math question and you are carrying a feeling, they are looking at the balance. You are looking at every lean year that taught you what happens when you are not careful. When someone tells a lifelong saver to just relax and spend, it can feel like being told to stand at the edge of something and trust that the ground will hold. Of course you flinch. Anyone would. The flinch is not weakness, it is memory. Now I want to tell you about someone, because I think you might recognize her. I will not use her real name, so let's call her Ruth. Ruth was 71 when I knew her, and by every measure she was fine, more than fine. She had worked 40 years, she had saved the whole way, she had a home that was paid for, and Ruth kept her house cold in the winter, not because she had to, because turning the heat up felt like the kind of thing that got a person into trouble. She wore a sweater in her own living room and told herself she was being sensible. Her daughter would visit and shiver and say, "Mom, please," and Ruth would smile and change the subject. And here is the part that stays with me. Ruth was not unhappy about the money. She was proud of it, but somewhere in there was a life she was not quite living. The good dishes stayed in the cabinet. The garden she always talked about stayed a plan. She was guarding a fortress she had built with her whole life, and she almost never walked into the middle of it and sat down and enjoyed the fact that it was hers. That is the cost nobody puts a number on, not the money you might waste. The years you might guard so carefully that you forget to live inside them. I am not telling you Ruth's story so you will feel bad. Ruth would not want that, and neither do I. I am telling you because the answer is not to become a different person. You do not have to turn into someone reckless with money to be free of this. Thank goodness, because you were never going to, and you should not want to. The saber in you is worth keeping. The watchfulness got you here. We are not throwing it out. We are just going to have a word with it. So here is the small, honest move, and it is smaller than you think. You do not fix a lifelong fear by making a giant leap. You fix it by giving it one piece of proof at a time. You pick one thing. One small, deliberate, planned bit of enjoyment. The dinner out. The warmer house this winter on purpose. The visit to the grandchildren where you do not count the gas. You decide on it ahead of time, so it is not a slip, it is a choice. And then you do it, and you pay attention to what happens next, which is nothing. The floor does not fall away. You are still safe. You have just shown that frightened younger self a single piece of evidence that the danger is over. And you may have to show that evidence more than once because a fear this old does not believe you the first time. But it does start to listen. And there is one more thing, maybe the most important thing, and it costs nothing at all. Say the fear out loud once to someone you trust, not to argue yourself out of it, just to name it. Say, "I know we have enough, and I am still afraid to spend it, and I think it is because of where I come from." That is it. You would be amazed what happens to a fear when you stop pretending it is just common sense and call it by its real name. Named out loud, once, without defending it, it gets a little smaller. It becomes a thing you have, instead of a thing you are. So if you are the one who saved all your life and still can't seem to spend it, I want to leave you with this. Your carefulness was a gift from a younger you who loved you enough to keep you safe. You do not owe it your whole retirement. You are allowed to thank it, and then, gently, on purpose, in small and deliberate ways, you are allowed to live. The money was always meant to become a life. It is not too late to let a little of it. Now I would like to hear from you, because I think a lot of you know exactly what I have been describing. Tell me in the comments about the thing you can't quite let yourself spend on, even though you know you could. What is it, and where do you think that carefulness came from? You do not have to have made peace with it. Naming it here out loud is more than most people ever do. I read these, and I will be down there with you. Take care of the quiet things, and the quiet things will take care of you.